We have 8 years of a case study now at the Singularity Group. I'm not claiming things anymore. I can prove it. We have benchmarks here that you all know. The MSCI All Country, the NASDAQ 100, and the S&P 500. And here you see the earnings growth that those benchmarks have delivered. The NASDAQ in the middle, 240% earnings growth, seems to be an innovation leader, the biggest, fastest earnings grower, most prominent one of the global benchmarks. Let's look at what an innovation screen has done. When we build our portfolios, we select only those companies in these benchmarks that make at least 10% of their revenues with something highly innovative. Look at that. We don't just outperform a little on earnings growth. This is double the earnings growth that we've been able to deliver in our portfolios. And the difference has got to come from somewhere, right? So the rest of the companies that we haven't been selecting have delivered this gray earnings growth. By the way, on average, 25 to 30 companies in the NASDAQ have been driving this 540% earnings growth, and the rest of the NASDAQ that everybody buys when they buy an ETF has delivered a lousy 25% earnings growth. It's close to nothing. Let's look at the returns that investors have been willing to pay for this earnings growth. You see the shading of the return going quite enough beyond the earnings growth that these benchmarks have been able to deliver for every single one of them. Again, most frappantly for the NASDAQ, here also for the S&P 500. Do you see this? Even though the Singularity Group, the innovation portfolios, have greatly outperformed the earnings growth of their benchmarks, and also the portfolios have greatly outperformed the performance of their benchmarks, this is still shy of the earnings growth that innovation portfolios have been able to deliver. Watch how long it takes for these non-innovative, non-earnings growing portfolios, parts of these benchmarks, for the performance that the investors have been willing to pay for them to come into this slide. Again, for the US equity space, for the NASDAQ 100, these 70 companies in the NASDAQ, which make up about 60% of the NASDAQ, have delivered 25% earnings growth. And the market has been willing to pay up 202% performance for it. Guys, we're not in an AI bubble. We're not in a growth bubble. We're not in a US equity bubble. American asset managers have convinced us that when for everything else that matters, healthcare products, new technology, progress in any space, we're willing to pay more. They've convinced us that for investment products, we should go for the cheapest one. They've convinced us into another bubble. Again, we're not in an AI bubble. We're not in a growth investment bubble. We're not in a US equity bubble. We're in a passive investment bubble. And if you dare not to belong to this pack here that is stuck in an overpriced world of companies that aren't able to deliver the earnings that the market has paid up for them now over these 8 years, here are a few products and their performance against the All Country, our flagship fund, against the NASDAQ 100 here, about 3% annualized outperformance after fees. Same here, even 3.5%. This is where you can get earnings-driven innovation performance.